As a mangaka at Type Moon Chapter 191 to 200, 191, Kurokawa Kazuya's target. $30 million, $35 million, $40 million, $41 million. The bidding had somehow turned into a private auction between Lehrman and Kazuya. $45 million. Kazuya once again stated the new bidding price. Really, Mr. Kurokawa, you've already bought 2 mystic eyes, haven't you? Why do you still want to buy this one? Lehrman frowned, his tone, though polite, carried a hint of dissatisfaction. The noble color-level mystic eyes were still fine, but currently, the auction was for golden-level mystic eyes, and as a mystic eye family member, he couldn't afford to ignore them. However, he felt that Kazuya's bid was too much. The real trouble was still ahead. The jewel mystic eye, that was the most crucial one. Because I haven't made up my mind yet, Kazuya pretended to be helpless and said, I haven't decided which one to buy, so I'll just bid for now. By the way, what's your bottom line? Above $45 million? Above $47 million? Or perhaps above $50 million? It shouldn't be that high. Ha! Think. Lehrman sighed, $46 million. Well, then, let me bid one last time. If Mr. Lehrman can surpass this price, I'll give up on this mystic eye. How about that? Kazuya said, $50 million. I give up. Lehrman covered his forehead. He wouldn't bid more than $50 million for this mystic eye. 51 million. Dead Apostle Colin Kidd smiled and said, I bid 51 million, how about that? 55 million. Kazuya continued with an expressionless face. You, Colin Kidd's face turned ugly, you said your maximum was $50 million. Indeed. I did say that if Mr. Lehrman bid higher than this, I would give up. But you're not Mr. Lehrman, are you? Kazuya narrowed his size slightly. This risky guy should just go to hell. In any case, he couldn't let the mystic eye fall into Colin Kidd's hands. TCH, Colin Kidd, dissatisfied, clicked his tongue and left his seat without saying more. Well, this mystic eye is sold for $55 million. After that, Kazuya also obtained another golden-level mystic eye for $60 million. It was clear to Sek. Lehrman, the person named, sighed in relief. Perhaps he thought that Kazuya had already spent over $100 million here and wouldn't have the capability to compete for the final jewel mystic eye. Although he wanted to push up the price a bit, however, looking at Kazuya's seemingly insightful CYCS, he was also worried that this might be a trap set by Kazuya to drain the money in his hands. Afterward, well then, onto the final act, the top-notch, jewel, rank, mystic eye of Dark Abyss. The host bowed, not towards the guests but towards the mystic eye. This time, the train is handling the jewel-ranked mystic eye for the first time, which is a supreme luck for both me and all the distinguished guests on the train. The starting price is $20 million. The host's voice, unlike before, was no longer calm, sounding a bit excited. $50 million. Neil Eddington, who had not spoken before, made a move this time. $80 million. Mavis immediately added. The atmosphere suddenly heated up. Kazuya did not rush to make a move but stood there, observing. The price of the mystic eye continued to climb, quickly reaching $250 million. Kazuya casually looked at a few people and said, as if joking, what's your bottom line? 200 million? 300 million? Or perhaps below 400 million, not above. No one told him to stop, not to make a fuss about the bidding. After all, it was just a small-scale auction, and even if everyone sitting there wasn't an ordinary person, it was a place where strength spoke. The price slowed down at 300 million. There was a pause each time the bid increased. Kazuya raised his hand, $400 million. The scene suddenly fell silent. Groans and moans could be heard. Mavis looked at him in astonishment, the dead apostle stared at him fixedly, and the priest seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, perhaps because it seemed he wasn't acquired by that dead apostle. Behind him, all 6 familiars stared at him. Even though they couldn't see through his substitute to know what was happening, they could sense the astonishment. Lehrman covered his head, unable to believe it, and moaned, Are you that wealthy? There happens to be some spare change. Kazuya smiled. Hey, wait a minute. I need confirmation. Does he really have that much money? Could it be that he's disrupting the auction with random bids? Colin Kidd couldn't believe it, saying, as a dead apostle, I've accumulated money over hundreds of years of life, and it's just over $300 million. This guy casually threw out several hundred million? He'd only been alive for a few years, right? No. Leandra directly confirmed. It can be verified. He does have this money. They had already investigated. Based on calculations, Kazuya's liquid assets in various banks aside, the fixed assets he held in Japan were already worth several $billion. Lerman felt a bit of a headache and finally sighed, giving up. The Lerman family was wealthy, able to produce hundreds of millions or even tens of billions, but being a frequent visitor to the Mystic Eye collection train, there was no need to invest too much money in a single Mystic Eye. Moreover, if this information could be verified, the Mystic Eye collection train had the intention of auctioning rainbow-level Mystic Eyes. If that were the case, they needed to be even more cautious. Even all the jewel-grade Mystic Eyes they had bought from the Mystic Eye collection train before would have to be sold. Because, according to their calculations, when a rainbow-level Mystic Eye appeared, the final price might reach above $100 billion. And that was something they would spare no effort to acquire, even if it meant going bankrupt. So, is there anyone willing to bid a higher price? Because of the interruption, the host asked, and 3 seconds later, she dropped the auction hammer. Sold, Jewel Mystic Eye of Dark Abyss is acquired by Mr. Kurokawa Kazuya. This time, all 5 Mystic Eyes are obtained by Mr. Kurokawa Kazuya and can begin transplantation work at any time. So, what are your intentions? I'm ready anytime. 192, Transplanting Mystic Eyes. Wait a moment. Lerman stood up and said, why do you want to buy so many Mystic Eyes? Ah. About that, Kazuya casually stood up and said, you see, if I get into a fight with someone else, would it be better for them to be wary of just one Mystic Eye? Or is it more challenging when they don't know the total, which happens to be 5 Mystic Eyes? Lerman's eyes lit up, and this time, instead of acquiring any Mystic Eyes, he smiled. Well then, Kazuya, how about cooperating with our Lerman family? Cooperate, Lerman said, lifting his side patch, revealing an eye emitting a gem-like radiance. As you can see, the Lerman family possesses the technology to create such prosthetic eyes. And they are detachable. Saying that, he inserted his hand into his eye socket, took out the eye, and replaced it with another from his pocket, just like this. If you're willing to cooperate with us, not only regular Mystic Eyes but even noble color-level Mystic Eyes are possible. Compared to a fixed Mystic Eye, isn't this more difficult to guard against? The rainbow Mystic Eye is about to be auctioned. Although he don't know the specific timing, it's within the last 10 to 20 years. For ordinary people, it might seem like an incredibly long time, but for us magus, it's different. Preparing for a magecraft takes decades. Preparing for a Mystic Eye takes even longer. It's all part of the normal course of events. Everything for the sake of reaching the root. If we have the rainbow Mystic Eye for research, we might be able to produce jewel-grade prosthetic eyes. This would be a significant advancement for us in reaching the root. In their eyes, when their descendants can develop the technology to create prosthetic eyes that match the rainbow Mystic Eye, they could potentially reach the root with this technology. And Kurokawa Kazuya are wealthy. Although he don't know the specifics, if we can achieve cooperation. Sorry, I'm not interested. Kazuya shrugged. Is that so? Lerman sighed slightly, then forget it. Lerman gave up, but someone hadn't given up yet. Even when Kazuya turned around, they could feel the gaze of that dead apposite fixed on them. So, he turned back and said, Mr. Eddington, what's the matter? I don't know if you need to transplant a Mystic Eye. Kazuya smiled. As you can see, I have 5 Mystic Eyes in my hands. If you need one, I can give it to you, as a contribution to the church. How about that? You brat. The dead apposite immediately understood Kazuya's intention. Use this Mystic Eye to kill the dead apposite. That must be what he was thinking. No, there's no need. Neil Eddington shook his head. Just a mere dead apposite, one person is enough for me. Yeah. Mr. Neil Eddington is truly amazing. The dead apposite squinted slightly, not saying anything more. Kazuya smiled. Too bad, but if you're not interested, let it be. Well then, let's proceed with the transplant. Alright, Kazuya said. Following the conductor, they left the compartment and headed towards the first compartment. So, which Mystic Eye do you want to transplant? Rodan asked Kazuya. Well, let's do it like your special service before. Combine 2 Mystic Eyes together. One eye will be transplanted with the Jewel Mystic Eye, and the other with the Golden Mystic Eye. How about that? Fine, Rodan nodded. By the way, if it's just one mystic eye, won't there be a risk of losing control, especially with that mystic eye of domination? I don't know, but once the transplant is complete, we can assess whether it's within control. However, even if it's a risk of losing control, the operation to fully control it will have to wait until next year. I mean, the removal.
I understand. Kazuya nodded. So, let's start the transplant. Alright. Saying that, Leandra came out from the side. I am in charge of transplanting mystic eyes for you.
Kazuya lay down on the surgical table, feeling a bit nervous. He still asked, it will definitely be successful, right? No problems?
Yes, no problem. Leandra nodded. Kazuya also breathed a sigh of relief. When his stand judged it, she said it was genuine.
The next moment the Rose Maiden appeared. It was an indescribable figure.
In an instant, Kazuya understood that the person in front of him was the deputy manager of the Mystic Eye Collection train.
In her two hands, she held bottles containing two pairs of mystic eyes.
Namely, the Jewel Mystic Eye and the Mystic Eye of Domination.
The mystic eyes merged with Cash Other in an astonishing speed. The four mystic eyes in Kazuya's gaze turned into two. Afterwards, the mystic eyes shattered. From the shattered mystic eyes emerged a fully controlled mystic eye.
After that, the deputy manager reached out her hand towards him, and the next moment, Kazuya lost consciousness.
Originally, removing and transplanting mystic eyes involves connecting the spiritual links between the two parties. This is a kind of super precise surgery that can be performed by breaking the connection to remove or by forming a connection to transplant. Kazuya's eyes, even if they were not mystic eyes, were linked to him.
If you want to remove them completely, without harming any other part of him, and even without shedding blood, only the deputy manager has the expertise to do it.
When Kazuya regained consciousness, everything before him was pitch black.
But there was a difference that he could sense. From his eye socket, he could feel the existence of eyeballs, but he was warm.
As if he was alive. A cloth of an unknown color wrapped around his eyes, blocking his vision.
The surgery has been successfully completed. Leandra's tone for the first time showed a sense of amazement. Unexpectedly, you managed to completely suppress these two mystic eyes, beyond expectations. What's wrong? Kazuya's voice was a bit hoarse. Mr. Kurokawa, in this state, one might suspect you are some kind of dead aposite, but you are indeed a human, making people amazed. But only in this way can you completely suppress these two mystic eyes. So, you mean, yes, as long as Mr. Kurokawa doesn't weaken, there is no possibility of going berserk.
At this moment, Kazuya finally relaxed. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories.
193 Kurokawa Kazuya's Mystic Eyes. When can this come off? Kazuya pointed to the bandage on his eye.
About an hour. Leandra said, in reality, the wound has completely healed, but the connection hasn't finished bonding yet. It still needs some time. An hour is already sufficient. Kazuya was somewhat surprised. Is it that easy to change eyes? The entire process felt like nothing, and he was told that it would be over in another hour when he woke up. Indeed, it's worthy of being called the Mystic Eye Collection train.
Kazuya sighed. This place was truly a paradise for those seeking mystic eyes.
Noble color mystic eyes could be obtained for around $10 million. Moreover, they could quickly form combat capabilities, exhibiting various effects. Even without the golden rule, it wouldn't be too difficult for a transmigrator. It was the starting point for delving into the mysteries. Although there were various dangers on the Mystic Eye Collection train, it generally stayed within a certain order. As long as one didn't act recklessly, magus wouldn't bother causing trouble. Even noble color-level mystic eyes were a rarity among magus.
Because golden-level mystic eyes already met the requirements for specific seals.
Guided by the staff of the Mystic Eye Collection train, Kazuya returned to his room. There were 6 more hours until they reached London, the final destination.
It was time for rest until then. He could also use this time to get used to the mystic eyes. An hour passed quickly. Just to be safe, Kazuya waited for an additional hour. After all, the host said it would take a little over an hour, but what did that mean? 1 hour and 59 minutes and 59 seconds still counted as a little over an hour.
So, just to be safe, waiting for 2 hours seemed reasonable.
If there were any issues after 2 hours, he could consider returning the item.
However, there were no unexpected occurrences. After removing the bandage, he looked around, and everything was clearer than ever, just like his own eyes. No, it was even clearer.
Mystic eyes were truly mystic eyes. In addition to the inherent abilities, dynamic vision, static vision, and more had significantly improved. Even with his hand in front of his eyes, he could see the details of the patterns. Even in the dark night, he could see distant scenery. Moreover, Dark Abyss, and Domination. Two mystic eyes, the left was the mystic eye of Dark Abyss, and the right was the mystic eye of Domination. He could sense that the two completely different mystic eyes on different channels had established a close connection with him. It was as if he had possessed these mystic eyes from the beginning. At the same time, he felt a slight decrease in his life force.
However, compared to the total amount of his life force, the reduction was too small.
Only a fraction of his life force was already sufficient to sustain the consumption of these mystic eyes.
Now, he could feel the power within the eyes, but, without an intended target, it was useless.
Whether it was Dark Abyss or Domination, both required a life force as a target. So, for now, he couldn't attempt anything. He put on the Mystic Eye Killer. This thing not only blocked Mystic CYC attacks but also prevented his Mystic CYCS from going out of control.
Even though they said the Mystic Eyes wouldn't go out of control after the transplant, their souls had verified that they weren't lying. However, there were things that weren't absolute. Their assurance that it wouldn't go out of control just slightly cased Kazuya's mind. Who knew what would happen later? Wearing the Mystic Eye Killer also added a bit of safety. After familiarizing himself with the operation of magical power a bit, he felt more familiar with what magical power was all about. While he had some understanding before, feeling such a large amount of magical power like this was a first. It seems. I'll need to learn more about this knowledge in the future, especially in controlling magical power. The two mystic eyes he now possessed were exceptionally outstanding. They contained a large number of magic circuits inside. The formed spells were even more complex. It could be said to be very complicated. Although he didn't know how the assistant manager managed to merge the two mystic eyes into one, he could probably guess. It was likely that they had used ONC Mystic Eye as a constant material and optimized the magic circuits of the other mystic eye. This kind of understanding probably required someone like her. Kazuya could only wear the pair of glasses for now. He couldn't do more than investigate the internal magic circuits. He still needed to learn. Time passed. The sky gradually brightened. The train broadcasted an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, the journey of the Mystic Eye Collection train concludes here. If fate permits, we will meet again. The train will stop at London in 5 minutes, and the stopping time will be 30 minutes. Kazuya's luggage had already been arranged before. He could get off at any time. He had planned to wait until the station was stable before saying it. But he sensed a magical power fluctuation outside. Is this the fluctuation of magical power? Kazuya looked at the wall beside him. His eyes seemed to see the magical power outside through the wall. It was like bats sensing ultrasonic waves that humans couldn't. Magical power also had something similar to ultrasonic waves. Ordinary humans couldn't feel it, but magus could easily capture it. And now, Kazuya felt the fluctuation there. Thanks to his newly acquired mystic eyes. Out of curiosity, he pushed open the door. The next moment, he saw two people facing each other in the corridor. A priest and a dead apostle. The dead apostle revealed fangs, blood-red eyes, seemingly another mystic eye. An Eric aura emanated from him. The priest unsheathed a black key, muttering verses from the Bible. Seeing Kazuya come out, the priest slightly paused and said, "How's your eye adaptation?" "Thanks for your concern, Mr. Eldington. I've adapted quite well." "Good." The priest smiled faintly, then once again focused his gaze on the dead apostle. Both had prepared for battle and were waiting for the moment the train stopped. Woo 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 woo. Accompanied by this sound, the train's speed slowed down, getting slower and slower until finally it came to a complete stop. The moment the door opened, the dead apostle quickly ran out at an extremely fast speed. And so did the priest. Surpassing human reason, he chased after the dead apostle like a black phantom. The next moment, as the dead apostle was running, he suddenly stopped, looked back with an ugly expression at Kazuya, and said, You. Sorry." Kazuya's right eye emitted strands of golden light. After all, it was just transplanted, it went out of control. 194 Clock Tower. In the eyes of the dead apostle Colin Kidd, there was a strong sense of killing intent.
In the next moment, he broke free from the compelled Kazuya's mystic eye. However, at this moment, a black key was inserted into his head. There were many magus around, but they all maintained a passive attitude, showing no intention of taking action. After all, both the Holy Church and the dead apostles were their enemies. In the next moment, a surprising scene that astonished Kazuya unfolded. Even with a black key inserted into his head, the dead apostle still managed to escape. The priest nodded slightly at Kazuya and then chased after the escaping dead apostle. The two figures disappeared just like that. Kazuya squinted slightly. The dead apostle had never harbored good intentions toward him from the beginning. He had casually asked some questions on the train, seemingly just casual inquiries with no need for answers. However, his stand had already revealed the answers from their souls. That dead apostle was an enemy. So, it would be best if he were eliminated. However, he had a premonition. It wouldn't end like this. He felt that he would encounter this dead apostle again someday, and it wouldn't be too far off, perhaps within the next few years. And at that time, everything might change. As the experiment complete, Mavis and Hishiri walked down from the train and said, "Do you remember? You need to register at the clock tower. Want me to show you the way?" Of course, I have no idea how to get to the clock tower. Kazuya smiled. Then let's go together. Mavis smiled. The three of them walked out together, and there were already cars waiting outside. Kazuya and Mavis sat in the back. Through his perspective, Kazuya squinted slightly, looking at the girl in front, Hishiri Adashino. It was different from the impression she gave in the Lord L. Meloy 2 case files, where she appeared to be the mastermind behind the scenes. Now, she seemed more dangerous. Although nothing was said along the way, it gave people a feeling of being stared at by a snake. Clock Tower. There was no real bounded field in the surrounding area. The field here was natural. A place where there was no magecraft, and nothing intervened naturally. It could be said to be the highest grade bounded field. The magical aura couldn't be sensed, and there was also a repellent effect. Without guidance from acquaintances, even magus might not be able to find this place. And now, Kazuya entered the highest institution of magical learning. In an instant, it felt different, and the air was filled with a rich ethereal atmosphere, relative to the outside world. The magical power here was not inferior to where the Mystic Eye Collection train was located. In the past, the place where he lived might have encountered such a situation, but at that time, he had no mystic eyes and couldn't judge at all. Now, with this new organ, he felt like the whole world had changed. Others wouldn't encounter such things. They were magus from the beginning, unlike Kazuya, who had no magecraft before obtaining the mystic eyes. Not to mention sensing magecraft. So, even if others changed Hus mystic size, there wouldn't be any unexpected changes. In fact, if you carefully observed Kazuya's two eyes, you would find some differences. There was a big difference when activating the mystic eyes. One eye was gold, and the other eye was jewel-colored. When not activated, his left eye was pitch black. It was blacker than before. Kazuya's eyes before could be described as gray-black, but now, it was indeed pitch black, like a color that could absorb all darkness. The color of the right eye was black with a slight glow. In simple terms, the left CYC was very dark and gloomy, giving people a feeling that this person was sinister and evil. The right eye gave people a cheerful and positive feeling. He was also preparing to get an eye patch for himself to cover the left eye when there was nothing to do. In general situations, whether it was to see things or perform magecraft, the right eye was enough. Otherwise, the lack of coordination between the two eyes would probably be noticed by someone. No, it would definitely be noticed by someone. By the way, how are the rankings of the clock tower generally determined? It's simple. Use offerings as the standard. Those who hold the position below the offering can generally decide for themselves if they are a first-level lecturer. However, if you want to be promoted to a higher position, you need recommendation letters from 3 or more first-level lecturers, publish more than 10 magical papers of a certain level, and obtain the consent of the lord of the subject after that. For the offering, let's not talk about it for now. The rank of the dean requires the recognition of one lord and the publication of at least one magical patent. The rank of the head requires the recognition of at least 3 lords, the publication of 3 magical patents, and the repair of a thaumaturgical foundation. Thaumaturgical foundation. Yes, you should have heard of this, right? Tuko Aozuki, she had several magical patents in her hands and repaired the thaumaturgical foundation of rune magecraft. Maybe she got the qualification to be promoted to the association. But it's probably given to her specimen labeled as Grand Mage in the deep part of the Ceremonial Edict Bureau, to her. That's it. Well, I understand a little. So, if things go well, I should be a firstborn or simply the youngest this time, right? Kazuya pondered for a moment and said, after all, I practically know nothing about magecraft now, let alone magical papers, and I haven't published a single one. No. If things go well, you should be an offering. Mavis said, you should be clear about this, right? Mystic eyes. That's right. Your mystic eyes qualify for this position. Mavis smiled slightly. After all, the main recipients of this position are people like you, who have strength but are not actually magus, or rather, a little more of a magecraft user in this position. Magus and magecraft users are different. A magus refers to someone who goes to any lengths to reach the root. A magecraft user is someone who treats magical means as tools. Different purposes, and there are some subtle differences in terms. I see. Suddenly, the person sitting in front, Hishiri, said, Department of Policies has arrived. Is it here? Kazuya looked out of the car window. Yes. Mavis nodded, all the streets here belong to the Department of Policies. 195, Subspecies Holy Grail War. It's over. Even with one CYC gouged out, Priest Neil Eddington remained resolute. While he lost an eye on his side, the dead apostle. Several black keys on his chest were about to lead him down the path to hell. Pray, I will forgive you. Ah. The dead apostle supported his knees, barely managing not to collapse. Blood continued to flow from the wound, staining the ground red. Over. The dead apostle, Colin Kidd, laughed, a hearty laugh. With a wide grin, he said, it's over for you. Haha, it seems you haven't noticed. Do you know why I went to the Mystic Eye Collection train? Why did I go there specifically? Just to avoid you. The priest frowned, unsure of what Colin Kidd wanted to say. However, whatever he wanted didn't matter. The dead don't plot. Do you know about the Holy Grail War? The dead apostle said as a massive black creature appeared on the ground, blocking the priest's path. He placed his hand on one of the black keys on his chest. Hiss. The black key burned his hand, causing intense pain with just a touch. If two magus, one from the fair fight between magus and the other from the church, were evenly matched in a one-on-one battle. And then, these two joined forces against a dead apostle. It was very likely that the magus would fail, and the church would easily win. For dead apostles, the people of the church were their natural enemies. The wound wouldn't stop bleeding. Even pulling out one black key caused excruciating pain, and the flesh on his hand immediately necrotized. The Holy Grail War in Fuyuki, the land of winter in the Far East. Of course, it ended in failure, and the Greater Grail was taken away by the Clock Tower. These are well-known facts. But there's something you might not know. The Subspecies Holy Grail War. The priest's pupils slightly contracted as a large black magic circle appeared on the ground, summoned by the dead apostle. Go to the Mystic Eye Collection train. Because there were still 3 days left until the Subspecies Holy Grail War started. But the Subspecies Holy Grail War has already begun. Come forth, my servant. No need for an incantation. The priest quickly retreated, feeling the tremendous threat. Wasn't he supposed to recite an incantation to save his life? Yet, it seemed unnecessary. In the next moment, a knight appeared before him. The priest's pupils slightly contracted. This wasn't good. This knight, he knew who it was. Or rather, many people knew who he was. At that moment, the dead apostle also laughed. He laughed with joy. Summoning this servant meant he didn't have to worry about betrayal. After all, he knew the servant's wish. Knights of Fianna First Champion, Diarmuid Uadwin, reporting. So, you are my master. Yes. The dead apostle laughed, taking out a fragment of a sword from his hand. This is the holy relic. Diarmuid, what is your class? No, I don't have a class. Diarmuid shook his head and said helplessly, I'm sorry. Master. This time, as at none rank, I am too weak. I need you to grant me a class. Oh. The dead apostle frowned slightly. Then let it be Lancer. He was quite familiar with Diarmuid as Lancer, or rather, many people were. I understand, Diarmuid said, and dual spears appeared in his hands. Then, Master, please allow me to pledge my loyalty and give commands. Ah, of course. The dead apostle laughed, holding up a piece of the sword in his hand. Kill that guy. Yes. Diarmuid nodded, looking at the priest. I don't know who you are, and you don't seem to be a servant, but please become a soul under my spear. The priest took a deep breath, holding a black key in his hand, without saying a word. Indeed, the servant in front of him exerted great pressure, but not as strong as he thought. Due to the subspecies Holy Grail War, the power was restricted. Even a complete Lancer class couldn't be summoned, and the current Diarmuid was just a defective product. The dead apostle was well aware of this. According to the data in that manga, Diarmuid's attributes should be Strength B, Endurance C, Agility A+, Magic D, Luck E, and Noble Phantasm B. However, as the current master, looking at Diarmuid, his attributes were Strength C, Endurance D, Agility B, Magic E, Luck E, and Noble Phantasm C. Except for Luck, they all dropped by about one level. Luck was the lowest, after all. In the end, it was just a subspecies. Even a relatively complete servant couldn't be summoned. However, it was enough. Just use him as a temporary familiar for 3 days. He spent quite a bit of money to purchase the participation rights for this subspecies Holy Grail War. That's right, all it needed was money, and participants wouldn't kill each other. After all, even if they won, there was no reward. And the restriction was as it was now, the servants were weakened. They could only exist for 3 days. And couldn't leave the summoning location. This time it was held in London, meaning, they couldn't leave London no matter what. This servant didn't have the ability to leave London. Look, the scene of Lancer and that priest fighting. Although Lancer had the upper hand, there was no situation where the servant was suppressing the priest. Occasionally, the priest could even retaliate. This wasn't even worthy of a third-rate servant. Lancer, use your noble phantasm. Quickly finish him off. Lancer hesitated for a moment. I understand, he didn't actually use his full strength. After all, a servant was a servant, even if weakened. Strength, endurance, and agility had decreased, but it didn't mean his martial skills had diminished. He just wanted to see the strength of the human before him. However, since the master gave the order, he would go all out. Since that's the case, let the game end. Blood splattered. 196 Executor. Colin Kidd. Priest Neil Eddington looked at the photo in his hand. Yes, he's a dead apostle who has lived for 100 years, evading the pursuit of the church for a century, and also your ladder to promotion. The burial agency. Neil Eddington's eyes flickered slightly. Ah, you still have a long way to go for that. No, a very long way, Father Ambrose Conant shook his head. But, this can be considered as furthering your holiness. The burial agency. This could be said to be the organization gathering the strongest forces of the entire church. Everyone has the ability to fight against high-ranking dead apostles, with a total of 8 members. 7 official members and 1 substitute member. In the Mages Association, perhaps only the squad, led by Bartholomew Lorelei could be compared with them. I understand, Neil Eddington nodded. In the field of burial agency, it's something only a few people would choose Holy Corpus. Transforming one's body into a mechanical entity. Most people, even went as far as transforming more than 9/10 of their bodies into such. Even so, it was still impossible to reach that realm. No matter how hard a typical inquisitors tried, it was still within the scope of human abilities. However, those in the burial agency undoubtedly surpassed humanity. The moves just now, are you a human? Diarmuid looked at the priest in front of him, frowning. He was prepared to cut off the priest's neck himself, but the priest's body dodged in a very awkward posture, leaving wounds that couldn't heal on him. It still surprised him a bit. After all, the enemy is a dead apostle. Without making such modifications, how is it possible? The priest's body was already mostly mechanized. It's not a matter of the more, the stronger. It mainly depends on a person's talent. His body was 30% mechanical, but he estimated that he could advance further now. Advance once again, to hunt down more dead apostle. To hunt down the undead that killed his family. That's his goal, his wish. But, this servant, even if it's a weakened version, it's still an existence he can't deal with.
Escape is also impossible. But even if he dies, he will take that dead apostle with him.
Swish. The next moment, several hilt handles appeared in his hand, and the next moment, blades appeared on the hilts. These were their basic weapons as executor black keys.
The black keys danced. He ignored the attack from the executor and went straight for the dead apostle.
How could I let you succeed? Lancer swung his spear to clear the black keys, and after that, he threw his red magic spear accurately at him, piercing his heart. But the attack had already been launched. What is this? The dead apostle was slightly stunned, one hand inserted into his chest, and the next moment exploded. Countless holy water sprayed all over him. Ah, master. It's really lucky. The priest with his heart pikered made his final sound.
Kazuya felt quite surprised. He didn't expect the Lord of the Department of Policies to meet him. This surprised them a lot, especially considering the answers he saw from Mavis' heart. She just said it casually. So, why did she want to see him now? He has already joined the clock tower, but there is still one procedure left. That is evaluation. His magic circuits can't even be a low-level magus, and he can't write a thesis at all. But according to Mavis's words, he should be able to be evaluated as a FEs. This is because of his mystic eyes. However, this evaluation also takes a lot of time. The evaluation for FEs depends on different requirements. For example, if it's a tuner, it requires the effect of enhancing the effects of magic inscriptions to reach a certain level, or how many magic circuits have been repaired. Judgments are made based on these criteria. If it is a user of the mystic code, it is only necessary to determine the effect and utility of this mystic code. For someone like Waver Velvet, it requires evaluating how many students he has taught who have achieved FEs or higher. And the evaluation for mystic eyes is very simple. That is the level. As long as it reaches the level of noble color, it can be evaluated as a FEs.
It seems simple, but in fact, within the clock tower, mystic eyes at the level of gold can already be sealed at will. When referring to those who have no power behind them. However, he did not expect that the Lord, Bartholomew Lorelei, would want to see him. It could be seen that even Mavis was surprised. Opening the door, he came to the girl with chestnut hair. The girl turned her head, looking at him. So, you're Kurokawa Kazuya, right?
Yes, what's the matter? The girl raised the manga in her hand.
Fate 0. Continue drawing the sequel. Even if it's the information given to you by Zelrech, you can still come up with the rest yourself, right? Continue drawing, the first time, the 7th time, the 8th time. Like that. Kazuya was a bit dumbfounded. Do you mean you like this manga? You want me to draw the rest?
Ah, yes, that's right. She casually nodded. Alright, I don't have that much time to wait. Go on and draw for me. Let's stop here for today. Without asking for his opinion, she unilaterally declared it. This kind of statement can be described as completely looking down on someone.
Anyone who hears someone speak to them like this cannot possibly feel comfortable. But she is not a dead apostle, and her status in the clock tower is quite high, and her personal strength is comparable to that of a servant. So, well, forget it. Bear with it and draw a couple more manga pages to vent. By the way, I heard that with your mystic eyes, you should be evaluated as a FEs. I agree with that. Mavis, just say it's my will, no need for any assessment. Yes, I understand, Mavis nodded. Kazuya suddenly felt something in his heart, as if there was a certain feeling. He turned around and said, could it be that you're a fan of mine? Huh, what are you talking about? I didn't hear clearly just now. Although she seemed angry, there was a look in her eyes. Kazuya had seen the answer to her soul. Yes, 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 yes. His mood changed in an instant. 197 Waver Velvet. Looking at the room in front of him. Diarmuid Uadwin tightened the spear in his hand and then released it. Then tightened it again, and released it. His expression was very conflicted. In another room, his master, the dead apostle, was drinking human blood. Initially, Diarmuid managed to obtain some non-scarce blood types from the hospital using his knowledge. But the dead apostle was very dissatisfied, and in the end, he personally captured a passerby.
If it were someone else, Diarmuid's spear would definitely pierce through the person's heart without hesitation, ending his life, and not even giving him time to use magecraft.
But he was his own master. And Diarmuid's wish was to be loyal to his own master.
Why did he have to encounter such a dilemma? Diarmuid's hands holding his noble phantasm turned slightly blue.
Loyalty and a sense of justice were constantly fighting in his heart, making him unsure of what to do. The next moment, he heard the sound of the door opening, and his noble phantasm instantly disappeared as he turned around.
The dead apostle Colin Kidd came out. Master.
Colin Kidd moved his body twice and laughed. That damned executor ended up dying at my hands. Now, there's only one target left. Once you finish this, you can return. Looking at his heroic spirit, he still felt a bit strange. After all, he had lived for several years and had some understanding of emotions. If heroic spirits were the products of human history, dead apostles were the negation of human history.
It could be said to be completely opposite, but now, this negating dead apostle was controlling and affirming heroic spirit.
The so-called strange wonders of the world are just like this. Diarmuid sighed slightly in his heart. So, Master, who is the next target?
Very simple. Colin Kidd smiled. A manga artist named Kurokawa Kazuya. Kill him, and your mission will be complete. No certificates or anything. However, if magus inquire next, they can check the level hierarchy of Kazuya in the clock tower.
Bartholomeo's words were convincing. She alone was equivalent to several lords. Nothing complicated. Kazuya quickly became a hierarchy magus in the clock tower, even though he didn't understand the details of magical operations. He couldn't even cast a single spell. But he was still a magus. Well, I'll accompany you here. Mavis said, I have other work. You'll have to handle it yourself from now on. Sure. Kazuya nodded. Can you tell me one thing, though? Where is Waver Velvet?
I know, although she didn't know what he wanted to do. Mavis told Kazuya the location of Waver Velvet, who is now a level 1 lecturer at the clock tower.
Thank you, thank you. Kazuya smiled and went in the direction she indicated.
He wanted to find Waver Velvet's location. After all, entering the magical world was a step through the door for himself. Although he didn't have much time to learn high-level magecraft, it was better to draw a few more manga during that have much time to learn high-level magecraft. It was better to draw a few more manga during that time. Maybe he could gain some powerful abilities. But, there were some magecrafts he still wanted to learn.
This would be quite convenient for his life. Such as, suggestion, enhancement, repair, and, healing, magecraft. All of these were very practical. Suggestion, in simple terms, was hypnosis. Enhancement, not only strengthened the strength of the body, but also, for example, if the eyes were dazzled by bright light, choosing to enhance the eyes could quickly restore them. Repair, if something was accidentally damaged, or if his manuscript was accidentally ruined, a repair spell would be enough. Even when he made mistakes in his drawings, occasionally he would make mistakes. At this time, using a repair spell to repair the damaged part of the ink, would the mistake disappear. Healing, this was even more useful. All kinds of injuries could be treated with this.
These were the 4 types of magecraft he most wanted to learn, and they were all basic magecraft.
But basic didn't mean useless, or rather, it was precisely because it was basic that it was more useful. For battles, his ripple and mystic eyes, coupled with a curse, were already sufficient.
But in everyday life, these could be very convenient. Soon, he came to a street that was much different from the previous one modern magecraft studies.
Waver Velvet was here. On the way, he encountered many students. Compared to the impressions given by other factions, this place felt more like an ordinary school. However, it seemed that no one recognized him. After all, he was just a manga artist, not the type of character who often appeared in public. Excuse me, do you know where Waver Velvet is? Kazuya asked a not very busy student passing by. Oh, about that, he should be in the office of that building.
Kazuya followed the direction he pointed and looked over, thanks. Without hesitation, the student left after speaking, without worrying about anything happening to Waver Velvet. After all, this was the clock tower, and Waver Velvet's whereabouts were not a secret. Soon, he found Waver Velvet's office and knocked on the door.
Come in, the door's not locked. A voice came from the room. Kazuya pushed the door open and walked in, seeing Waver Velvet buried in a pile of documents. If you have something to say it quickly. Waver Velvet raised his head and looked at Kazuya with a slight frown. Who are you? Nice to meet you, Waver Velvet. Kazuya smiled and said, as for my name, I think you must have heard of it, Kurokawa Kazuya, that's me. Quote. Waver Velvet rubbed his forehead, pressed a bell on the side.
Soon, the door on the opposite side of this room was pushed open, and a maid-like person came over to Kazuya and said,
Is there anything you need, Mr. Velvet? Ah, take him away, Waver Velvet sighed. Another one claiming to be Kurokawa Kazuya.
I understand, 198, Servant Lancer. Hey, wait, I'm real, I swear.
Waver sighed, said nothing more, and lowered his head. It wasn't the first time. Every month, there were a few people who claimed to be Kurokawa Kazuya and even some who said they knew Alexander. There were even those who claimed to have future information and would become his disciples. Well, the last one was 3 times his age. Being famous attracts rumors. Now, in the clock tower, he was somewhat of a celebrity. The crucial point was that he hadn't hidden his abilities.
That was his current evaluation in the clock tower. After all, he had been teaching for just over 2 years, and climbing to the rank of clock tower level 1 lecturer in such a short time was quite impressive.
Why hasn't she been brought over yet? Master, I can't move. The maid spoke expressionlessly.
Waver squinted slightly and stood up. Mystic eyes? Binding? No, domination?
Impressive. You can determine what my mystic eyes are just by looking. Kazuya smiled and continued, so, are you ready to listen now? I am Kurikawa Kazuya. I bought these mystic eyes and came to the clock tower to learn magecraft. That's why I've come to find you. Bought mystic eyes. Waver slowly sat back down and pressed a hidden button under the table.
The previous doorbell was just to prevent harassment. This button, on the other hand, was for real combat. It wasn't meant for someone like the maid, but for a true high-level magus.
Oh, yes. Kazuya nodded. But I didn't expect that after a few years, you've grown taller.
In fact, I saw you when I was in Fuyuki City.
In an instant, Waver's eyes widened. What had been a slight suspicion in his mind became crystal clear. So, that servant was yours.
Now, he was starting to believe Kazuya's words. Release her. Why have you come to me?
Kazuya closed his mystic eyes. The maid bowed expressionlessly and retreated.
You must be El Meloi too. No one can match your ability to teach disciples. If I want to learn magecraft quickly, control my mystic eyes, and thought of who would be most suitable, it had to be you. What do you say? Can you help me out?
Waver covered his head in pain and groaned. Later, Kazuya left the clock tower satisfied.
Well, let's go back to the hotel. It's late, and we can continue our lesson tomorrow.
On the other side, Japan, Jojo Publishing, they were happily working on the animation they had abandoned halfway, Gunbuster, and redesigned it completely.
The hotel was not within the clock tower. Leaving the clock tower's area, Kazuya looked at the inconspicuous entrance and couldn't help marveling. Without someone guiding, who could have guessed that this was the entrance to the clock tower? After a while, Kazuya suddenly turned around. The jewel in his pitch-black left eye sparkled. Ding! The long spear veered away from Kazuya's side. Oh, that was the mystic eye from earlier. The man with the spear picked up his weapon and smiled at Kazuya. To be able to plunge me into a moment of darkness, you've done well. Dear mood. Kazuya's face changed slightly, and the dangerous aura was not fake. So why was he appearing now? The Holy Grail War. No, it wasn't the time for the Holy Grail War. If the Holy Grail of the Mages Association was truly beginning a Holy Grail War, there was no way there would be no information at all. So, what was going on? Watch out. He's attacking. Kazuya's face changed, and he dodged to the side, using his right hand to block the oncoming spear. He said the chant, retreat. The next moment, Dirmud Ua Dweebni stepped back 2 steps. Indeed. No, you're not Dirmud, are you? The real Lancer class Dirmud had a B rank in magic resistance, meaning he was almost immune to large-scale magecraft. Even under great magc craft, it was doubtful whether he could be defeated. Even if hit by powerful magecraft, he would quickly break free. However, Kazuya's 2 mystic eyes were at the level of grand magecraft. The golden class mystic eyes contained the power of grand magecraft, and the jewel class mystic eyes likely contained a domain that rendered all magecraft powerless. His forced mystic eye working was expected. But it shouldn't be this effective. After all, he only had 1 mystic eye. Although it had been strengthened to a certain extent, it still couldn't compare to both eyes activating at the same time. It could only be considered barely reaching the level of grand magecraft. It was understandable to temporarily bind Dirmud, but making him retreat was almost impossible. But now, this impossible thing had actually happened. This wasn't the effect of B-rank magic resistance. It was a lower-level C-rank or even D-rank resistance to magecraft. This highlighted the strength of a certain Ahoge. Her magic resistance was A rank. The possibility of his mystic CYC of domination working was 0, and the mystic CYC of Dark Abyss. He didn't even know if it would work. And the other saint with a similar face, his mystic eyes would definitely not work because her magic resistance was X. So that's it. Are you puzzled? But I am indeed Dirmud. Why am I so weak? It's probably because of the incomplete nature of this Holy Grail war. Even the Lancer class can't fully manifest.
Suicide. Lancer's expression changed, and the spear stopped suddenly in front of his chest. The next moment, he avoided Kazuya's eyes, said nothing more, and no longer looked into Kazuya's eyes to launch an attack.
This was a weakness of the mystic eyes. If one didn't look into the eyes, the effect would weaken.
But, the next moment, Diarmuid's vision once again plunged into darkness.
Not just his vision. He couldn't see, hear, or sense.
But, instinct remained. Kazuya, holding his arm, retreated several steps. The wound hadn't healed. Sealed 5 senses, and even with mystic eyes, did you still manage to injure me through touch? Kazuya's face looked a bit ugly. There was a significant wound on his right arm, and the wound constantly emitted a golden light that resisted rejection. Ripple. The ripple blocked the flow of blood, acting as a hemostatic effect. It was like being able to prevent water from pouring out of an inverted cup. But, even if this guy was a weakened version of Diarmuid, could he not win without using the command spell?
199. In the form of a human? No, not necessarily.
Ripple dash. Kazuya forcefully pulled back his right hand, the threads on his right hand glove entwining with the yellow short spear that had just been wrapped around Lancer. His left hand, covered in ripples, also moved towards the heroic spirit in front of him. In an instant, watching as Lancer broke free from the mystic eyes of Dark Abyss through the release of magical power, Kazuya spoke, "Are you planning to retract your own spear? Or attack me with that red spear of yours? I guess you intend to sweep it across."
What? Lancer was slightly taken aback. Indeed, just as Kazuya said, Lancer's red long spear swung towards him. But precisely as if anticipating Lancer's attack, Kazuya bent down and avoided it.
Eat this. Ripple dash. Kazuya threw a punch with all his might directly into Lancer's abdomen. Cough. Lancer coughed up a mouthful of blood, and his whole person staggered backward. "I guess your next words are, how did you know how I was going to attack?" Kazuya grinned. "How did you know I was going to? Then let's bet one more time." Kazuya exhaled slightly. "Are you going to retract the yellow spear in your left hand, or attack with the red spear in your right hand? Come on, let's bet. Is it red or yellow? I guess you'll probably choose the red one, right?" "No, it's my foot." Lancer kicked out suddenly, taking advantage of his agility, which had fallen to B but was still far beyond what a human could evade. As long as he hit Kazuya's attacks once with his own strength. What? Lancer's expression changed.
Evaded? So fast? Not. No, it wasn't about speed, but this guy predicted his movements.
"It seems like I bet wrong. HMPH, but," Kazuya said, and a figure slowly appeared behind him.
It was a ghostly white entity, with a head shaped like a monkey, a blue brain, steam spraying from its ears, and no visible mouth. H and M were written on its face on both sides. It firmly grabbed Lancer's leg with one hand. What is this? "Oh, it looks like you can see it. No matter, it doesn't matter."
Indeed, Lancer also felt the fatal danger. He couldn't pull his leg out.
This guy's strength was incredible, even greater than his own, greater than the strength of his servant.
In fact, Kazuya's stand was far from matching Lancer's strength. After all, this wasn't Platinum Star or anything. However, Lancer, who guessed Kazuya's attack twice, and guessed what he was going to say once, was already weakened. Although he didn't feel anything, in reality, his soul energy had indeed been weakened. There was still a slight difference between spiritualization and soul, and Lancer thought that Kazuya held onto his soul at that moment.
Although he couldn't pull it out, he was still far from it. But just by pulling down one leg and knocking him out, it was still possible. After all, Kazuya's stand, apart from having a C in speed and B in endurance, had all other parameters, such as destructive power, range, and precision, at D. So, stand couldn't possibly be stronger than Lancer.
However, even so, he won. By grabbing his leg, he could gradually spread it and let his stand knock him out.
By relying on his own strength, he finally defeated a servant.
Poochie. The next moment, Kazuya's face changed. The yellow long spear pierced through his left hand.
In an instant, the red long spear cut off Lancer's leg.
Beautiful. Lancer's left leg continued to bleed, standing there with only one leg, his face slightly pale, but one could still see the unyielding look in his eyes. "I didn't expect in this era, there would still be someone who could inflict such injuries on me, even suppress me, truly amazing. So, let's begin round 2.
This guy actually directly cut off his own leg? Kazuya took a deep breath. Truly a renowned hero in human history. I underestimated you. Perhaps it's still too early now.
No, I was indeed injured by you. Lancer's face was slightly pale, but he smiled, unyielding even in such a state. I didn't expect that I would be injured by a human. You're even stronger than that priest from earlier. Kazuya's heart tightened slightly. Priest. It seems like you know him. Lancer fell silent for a moment. He was a powerful warrior, but unfortunately, he met me, and compared to him, there's something I can't understand between you and me. Until now, you've displayed so many abilities, guessing my attacks, and just now, what kind of ability was that? So, do you have any other abilities that haven't been revealed? Maybe, there's an ability that can defeat me, Dearmood. I guess I'm not ready to reveal it at this time. Really? Lancer smiled. Of course, but I wanted to wait until your master appeared behind you to decide whether or not to use it. I also wanted to test my own abilities and see if I really had the ability to fight against a heroic spirit.
Not far away, the dead apostle, who had been observing the battle, sneered slightly. What did you come here for? To be ambushed like earlier?
Moreover, he didn't expect Kazuya to be so powerful, able to fight even against heroic spirits.
If he had gone over there earlier, he might have been killed.
Kazuya clenched his right fist. But, I didn't expect your master behind you still hasn't shown up until now. Now that I've almost revealed most of my moves, I don't want to expose myself too quickly. So, there's no other way, you'll die here.
Well then come. Lancer had just finished speaking when his expression changed slightly, and he jumped with one leg, rushing towards Kazuya at high speed. Watch out, dodge.
That was an order from his master behind him. The next moment, Kazuya clenched his fist, and a glow appeared on the back of his right hand. Even though he was wearing gloves, it still couldn't block the glow on his hand.
Dearmood was directly blown away in the distance. In the distance, he fell to the ground with his remaining leg stable.
After lifting his head and looking at the current situation, he was slightly stunned. This is.
Originally standing there, the person was gone. In his place was a servant. 200, heroic spirits, servant. The dead apostle, Colin Kidd, couldn't believe it. Isn't he just a manga artist? How could he become a servant? No. That feeling, it's definitely a servant, but what on earth is happening? It wasn't just the dead apostle. Dearmood also looked surprised.
The person in front of them transformed into a heroic spirit in the midst of the battle. Huff. Kazuya also let out a breath, gripping his own hands tightly. Surrendering his body without resistance to someone else's control was a first for him.
Let me go. I'm not a battle maniac. The heroic spirit spoke in Kazuya's mind. It's not bad to take a little rest during this time. So, I'll leave the fighting to you as a bit of repayment. Do you have memories? Kazuya thought, and 2 knives appeared between his hands.
One black and one white. Kansho and Bakuya. Ah, yes. Although I don't know much about others, every time, I carry a portion of my own memories. The rest is probably within the throne of heroes. So, my memories at any time are never exceptional, nor unexpected. Having all my memories, this is probably an issue with the boundary record. Kazuya knew this term, boundary record. That was another name for the throne of heroes.
Why do heroic spirits have various powers? How can they manifest the powers from legends? Even abilities that don't belong to them originally get added to them.
Because they are, in essence, data. Since they are data, they can be modified.
Everyone exists within the boundary record, but after a certain period, they get deleted.
Because even the saved data loses its value. And those with saved value, without a doubt, are the heroes of human history, the heroic spirits.
The weak heroic spirits are probably unconscious, while the powerful heroic spirits, even though they're just data, possess a sense of self, power, and even if it is suppressible, a power that cannot be easily tampered with, a power that cannot be shaken even by human history. Do you have such experiences in your memories? Yes. Although I don't know what exactly happened, in my current memories, there have been 3 instances where my memories were experienced in parallel worlds. So, naturally, that means. Well, the actual number of times probably exceeds 3. Why? Are you curious?
Of course, very curious. Kazuya looked at Diarmuid, who took advantage of this time to tear off a part of his clothes to bind the wound on his severed leg, saying, "Tell me after we finish our battle." Forceful curse words, I remember it should be pronounced like this. Lam the bone of my sword. Boom. A red flame covered the world. The next moment, what appeared was a sword-filled wasteland. This was the reality marble known as Unlimited Blade Works. The ground turned into a wasteland, with swords of all kinds piercing the earth. All of them were projections of the red heroic spirit. On the back side of the boundary were gears. The presence within this reality marble was lightened.
Kazuya looked around carefully, but still couldn't find Lancer's master.
He had no idea where that guy was hiding. Lancer, Diarmuid, let yourselves die in this Unlimited Blade Works.
Huff. Taking a deep breath, Diarmuid picked up his own spear with both hands. Come.
Of course, but before that, there's a question. Do you know where your master is? Kazuya asked, activating his stand ability. Whether he knew or not, the answer could be confirmed in an instant.
Sorry, I don't know where my master is. Even if I knew, I wouldn't say it in front of you, right?
I see. Kazuya nodded, extending his hand. The next moment, countless swords rose from the ground. He could confirm that Lancer was telling the truth, that he genuinely didn't know where his master was located. That master was indeed cautious enough not to let even his own servant know his whereabouts. Well then, say it again. Die in this Unlimited Blade Works.
The next moment a black rain of swords, covering the sky, enveloped Diarmuid.
For the first time, Kazuya attempted this. Unlike before, where he just watched, now, he personally experienced controlling this countless rain of swords. Treasured swords, magic swords, sharp swords, divine swords, demonic blades, famous swords, sharp blades, dull knives. Everything was shooting towards the red heroic spirit holding dual guns. The yellow spear resisted, and the red spear shattered. Because of the severed leg, his movements were restricted. Because he wasn't a complete lancer, his stats had decreased. But his bravery hadn't diminished a bit. The red spear swept through, breaking all the sword blades that came into contact with it, regardless of what they were. Guy Dierg, Crimson Rose of Exorcism. The effect was simple, making magecraft ineffective. And, while the yellow spear resisted, before it could destroy all the swords.
Swish. Even with only one leg, he couldn't stop his movements.
Then, he threw the yellow spear in his hand towards Kazuya Clang. Take this. This is my last move. Guy Dierg. Ignoring the swords, Lancer let the rain of swords pierce him. In the end, he threw the red spear from his hand towards Kazuya.
Piercing through everything in its path, all the swords near that spear disappeared. Then, right when it was about to reach Kazuya,
the spear disappeared. Truly, regrettable, Diarmuid said, slowly fading away as countless swords pierced him. Sparks of light appeared around his body.
He was about to disappear. He was going back to the throne of heroes. Even with a sense of regret, there was no sense of failure.
Perhaps, this was what he wanted. His master was a dead apostle, doing things that went against his sense of justice.
And his purpose. Before being summoned, he had sworn to be loyal to his new liege no matter what. Two conflicting things. Right now, it was all coming to an end. In this loyal battle, he met his end at the request of his defeated master. This was the most fitting conclusion for him. If, next time, I hope, to be summoned as a true servant, I also want. Before he could finish speaking, he had completely disappeared. But, Kazuya knew what he wanted to say. That's what you call a hero. Boring hero plot. However, using the reality marble like this greatly consumes my existence time, although I don't really mind. Was it worth it? Of course. Kazuya smiled with a red face, waved his hand, and the reality marble disappeared. Although opening the reality marble did not suck in that dead apostle who knows if he's nearby, but, heroes must have a death worthy of heroes. I personally like these dramatic things. As you wish. Kazuya looked around and jumped onto a building a few times. Well, even so, I can't find that dead apostle. It seems like he really ran far away. I don't know if there will be another chance. Let's leave this place for now. Kazuya thought. After all, this was London, where the clock tower was located. With such strong magical fluctuations, it might attract someone. It's better to run away quickly. By the way, take this time to tell me about your impressions of the Throne of Heroes. Although I want to say it doesn't matter, there's not much to say about it. Just say whatever, it's just to pass the time.